In the last video, we talked about 4 behaviors that ruin a woman's value in a man's eyes. But today, we're flipping the script. I'm breaking down the 4 specific habits that ruin attraction with younger women. Few things bruise a man's pride faster than realizing she lost interest and not knowing what you did wrong. It's easy to assume age is the real issue until you see this. According to psychologist Dr. Terry Orbuch, 73% of women aged 25 to 40 said they'd consider dating a man 10-plus years older, but only 23% actually followed through. That massive gap, it's not about age, looks, or money. It's about these 4 unconscious behaviors that scream insecurity and emotional disconnection. If you're serious about turning your experience into genuine attraction, like and subscribe now, because what I'm about to share will challenge everything you think you know about age gap dating. Now, let's take a closer look at the first habit. The one that seems harmless on the surface, but quietly chips away at her interest before you even realize what's happening. 1. Overexplaining to prove you're not like the others. I was sitting across from Sarah at a coffee shop. She was 34, and I had just crossed into my 60s. 10 minutes in, I found myself slipping into what I thought was reassurings. "I'm not one of those older guys who thinks he knows everything," I said. "I actually listen to women." It wasn't confidence, it was quiet insecurity, dressed up as humility. Looking back, I cringe. Not because I was lying, but because I was trying so hard to distance myself from every older man's stereotype that I forgot to just be myself. Here's what I didn't understand then. When you over-explain your differences, you're not proving your uniqueness, you're advertising your insecurity. Every time you say, "I'm not like other older men," you're essentially telling her that you're worried about being lumped in with them. And that worry, it's not attractive. Younger women don't need you to prove you're different. They need you to show them through your actions, your presence, your authentic responses. When you over-explain, you're asking for reassurance instead of offering confidence. The man who feels the need to announce his difference has already surrendered his power to the very thing he's trying to escape. I learned this the hard way when Sarah gently said, "You don't need to convince me you're a good guy, Vernon. I can see it." Her words hit me like a cold slap of reality. I was so focused on defending against assumptions she wasn't even making that I forgot to connect with who she actually was. The truth is, younger women have met plenty of older men. Some were condescending, some were controlling, some were emotionally unavailable. But they've also met older men who were confident, present, and secure in their own skin. Guess which ones they remember fondly. Your age gives you permission to be comfortable with yourself, not to apologize for it. When you stop defending your worthiness and start embodying it, something shifts. She stops seeing you as an older guy trying to prove himself and starts seeing you as a man who knows who he is. The most attractive thing you can do is assume you belong in the conversation. Not because you're special, but because you've earned the right to be there through decades of life experience. Let your actions speak. Let your presence do the talking. If trying to prove your uniqueness undermines your presence, the next habit can erase her respect altogether. 2. Acting like her mentor or life coach. You know what unsolicited advice feels like to a woman? It doesn't feel helpful, it feels condescending. And when an older man starts offering life guidance to a younger woman who didn't ask for it, it creates an immediate power imbalance that kills attraction faster than you can say, "When I was your age." I made this mistake with Emma, a 28-year-old marketing professional I met at a networking event. She mentioned struggling with a difficult client, and instead of simply listening, I launched into a 10-minute monologue about proper client management strategies and what I've learned in my 40 years of business. The moment I saw her eyes glaze over, I knew I'd crossed a line. But it was too late. I'd positioned myself as the wise elder dispensing wisdom to the inexperienced young woman. What I thought was supportive came across as patronizing. The moment you assume someone needs your guidance, you've stopped seeing them as an equal, and they'll feel that shift immediately. Here's what it took me years to understand. Younger women aren't looking for another father figure or life coach. They're looking for a partner, someone who can engage with their ideas, challenge their thinking when appropriate, and support their growth without assuming they need to be rescued or educated. 2. Acting like her mentor or life coach. You know what unsolicited advice feels like to a woman? It doesn't feel helpful, it feels condescending. And when an older man starts offering life guidance to a younger woman who didn't ask for it, it creates an immediate power imbalance that kills attraction faster than you can say, "When I was your age." I made this mistake with Emma, a 28-year-old marketing professional I met at a networking event. She mentioned struggling with a difficult client, and instead of simply listening, I launched into a 10-minute monologue about proper client management strategies and what I've learned in my 40 years of business. The moment I saw her eyes glaze over, I knew I'd crossed a line. But it was too late. I'd positioned myself as the wise elder dispensing wisdom to the inexperienced young woman. What I thought was supportive came across as patronizing. The moment you assume someone needs your guidance, you've stopped seeing them as an equal, and they'll feel that shift immediately. Here's what it took me years to understand. Younger women aren't looking for another father figure or life coach. They're looking for a partner, someone who can engage with their ideas, challenge their thinking when appropriate, and support their growth without assuming they need to be rescued or educated. 3. Trying to impress her with status or wealth. The man who leads with his wallet has already revealed that he has nothing more interesting to offer. When you lead with wealth or status, you're not attracting her to you, you're attracting her to what you can provide. And younger women, especially those who are building their own careers and independence, often find this approach insulting rather than impressive. Think about it from her perspective. She's worked hard to establish herself professionally. She has her own ambitions, her own financial goals, her own sense of worth. When you immediately start flashing money or status, you're essentially saying, "I don't trust that who I am is enough to interest you." The most successful connections I've had with younger women happened when I forgot about impressing them and focused on connecting with them. When I talked about my passions, my curiosities, my genuine interests, not my bank account. When you lead with external validation, money, status, possessions, you're avoiding the vulnerable work of showing who you actually are. You're hiding behind achievements instead of revealing character. Younger women are attracted to confidence, not compensation. They're drawn to authenticity, not assets. They want to know what makes you laugh, what keeps you curious, what you're passionate about beyond your professional success. Your financial stability is an advantage, yes, but it's not the advantage. It's the foundation that allows you to be present, generous with your time, and emotionally available. It's not the main course. It's the table you serve the connection on. Even wealth can't cover emotional neediness. But this next habit, it hides inside jokes and kills attraction quietly. I watched my friend Marcus make this mistake with devastating precision. He'd take younger women to the most expensive restaurants, drop casual mentions of his investment portfolio, and somehow work his Mercedes into every conversation. He thought he was showing his value. What he was actually showing was his insecurity. I remember the night he called me, confused and frustrated. "I don't get it, Vernon. I took her to that new place downtown, the one with the $200 steaks. I paid for everything, told her about my vacation home in Aspen, and she seemed distant. What am I doing wrong?" The answer was everything and nothing. Even wealth can't cover emotional neediness, but this next habit, it hides inside jokes and kills attraction quietly. 4. Fishing for compliments with self-depreciating humor. "I'm probably too old for you to find attractive anyway. You could do so much better than an old guy like me. I'm surprised someone like you would even talk to someone like me." Sound familiar? I used to think these kinds of comments were humble, maybe even charming. Self-depreciating humor, right? What I didn't realize was that I was fishing for compliments while simultaneously putting her in an uncomfortable position. I didn't realize how cringeworthy it sounded until Rachel, a 35-year-old photographer I met at a gallery opening, raised an eyebrow at my third self-depreciating joke. Within the first 10 minutes, I'd already made at least 3 comments about my age, my declining relevance, and how lucky I was that she was even talking to me. At the time, I thought I was being self-aware and humble. Looking back, it wasn't humility, it was insecurity in disguise, and she caught it faster than I did. What I was actually doing was forcing her to manage my insecurities. Every time I made a self-depreciating comment, I was essentially asking her to reassure me, to convince me of my worth, to stroke my ego while pretending to be modest. The man who constantly diminishes himself is asking others to do the emotional labor of building him back up. Here's what took me too long to understand. When you fish for compliments through self-depreciating humor, you're not being charming. You're being needy. You're placing the burden of your self-worth on someone else's shoulders, and that's exhausting, especially for younger women who are dealing with their own insecurities and challenges. Rachel helped me see this clearly. After my third old guy joke of the evening, she paused and said, "Vernon, you keep putting yourself down. Are you looking for me to disagree with you?" The directness of her question stopped me cold. She was right. I was looking for disagreement. I was looking for validation. I was looking for her to tell me I wasn't too old, wasn't irrelevant, wasn't lucky to be talking to her. But in seeking that validation, I was making our interaction about my need for reassurance rather than about genuine connection. Real confidence doesn't need constant reinforcement. It doesn't hide behind self-deprecating jokes or fish for compliments. It shows up, engages authentically, and lets the interaction speak for itself. The most attractive older men I know never apologize for their age or their experience. They don't make jokes about being too old or past their prime. They show up as men who have lived, learned, and have something valuable to offer. Not because they're trying to prove it, but because they genuinely believe it. Your humor should lift the energy in the room, not drain it. It should create connection, not demand emotional labor. Have you ever heard or said something like this and noticed the energy shift? Drop your story in the comments. The most honest ones are always the most helpful. Now, what does all this really say about how we show up in love after 60? Let's close with what matters most. Today, we've unpacked 4 habits that quietly destroy attraction with younger women, not because of age, but because they signal a lack of inner alignment. When you feel the need to over-explain, mentor, impress, or fish for validation, you're operating from a place of scarcity. You're acting as if you have to earn your place in the conversation, as if your decades of experience and wisdom somehow make you less attractive rather than more. The most attractive thing about being an older man isn't your wealth or your wisdom or your stability, though those are all advantages. It's your capacity to be comfortable in your own skin, to show up without apology, without defense, without the desperate need to prove your worth. You've earned the right to be here, to take up space, and to be seen for who you are, attractive, interesting, and valuable. So stop asking for permission to be worthy of love. And you know, that's exactly what Carl Jung once said. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. It's not about proving anything. It's about becoming deeply, unapologetically yourself. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more insights on navigating love after 60. Because the best chapters of your romantic life might still be ahead of you. And I'm Vernon. Thanks for watching my video.